Welcome to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and director of The Sales Doctor. I'm joined today by Michelle Fahey, who's the Executive General Manager of People and Culture at Intellihub. Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Let's kick right off by me understanding a little bit about what made you choose a career in HR.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I fell into a career in HR. I actually had a really rough year 12, so we had a family house fire, and so year 12 was a really, really challenging year, and so academically I didn't perform as best as I could have. And so I was really not sure what I wanted to do at the end of year 12. And that's really like most year 12 students, coming out of high school. But my mum actually had a best friend who worked at Victoria University. And she spoke to the dean of VU and said she, has a best friend who has a daughter who would be incredible to join the university, but obviously this has happened and her scores aren't reflective. And this incredible dean said, I want to meet her. So I had to go in as a 18-year-old to do this formal interview at this university with this dean who was just an absolute delight. And he loved the conversation and offered me a 1 year in business. And he said to me, you just need to come, you do the first year business, you'll do 8 subjects, so you'll get to try everything, and then you can decide what you want to do at the end of that year. And business was not even on my radar at the time, but I knew I wanted to go to university. That's probably all I knew. And I hadn't been one of those students that had done the business VCE subject, so I was really not sure what I was walking into, but I was going to give it a go anyway. And so I did my first year, and obviously you do a subject in HR, and I met this incredible person who was actually doing a HR degree, so she knew what she wanted to do. And just doing the subject and actually learning about what this career was, it really resonated with me, and the rest was kind of history from there. I then transferred into HR. And then got my first internship. So I was one of those people that worked an intern year. And I did that at one of the hardest, interns you could do, which is at a recruitment agency, Hayes Recruitment. And knew I then didn't want to work in an agency, but I definitely loved people, loved recruitment, and knew this was the space for me. And so I was lucky enough to then get a proper HR role at CSR Sugar. But a really random entry into the profession, and I have stayed with it for 20 plus years now, and really grateful that that's how I came to be in HR.
I just find that story incredible, and I've known you a few years now, and yet I don't think, I know I'm deaf, but I don't think you've ever told me that story about a house fire. That would absolutely change your whole year.
Yeah, it did, and it's changed me as a person, I think. But interestingly enough, you have the International Women's Day, and you get more reflective because people do ask you, how did you get into P&C? And last year I actually sent my mum's best friend a bunch of flowers on International Women's Day to say thank you, because I think it's about that women empowering women. Yes. And she saw something, in me, reached out to someone, and she's really the reason why I'm here, because I would not have gone into business. It wasn't on my radar, and I certainly didn't even know what HR was at the time. So she really was pivotal, I think, in changing sort of my direction of life, without even knowing she was, really doing that. So, yeah, it's incredible, those sort of, cornerstones.
Oh, I'll say, it's like there are moments throughout life, isn't there, that where it's almost like sliding doors, and had you gone a different way, the ongoing trajectory of where you'd have ended up would have been, or could have been, quite different. Before we move on to that, I just have to dig into, how you said business wasn't even on your radar. You didn't take any subjects like that in year 12. What subjects were you kind of angling towards?
So I loved English. I was one of those people that loved home ec. I still like to cook and bake. It's my happy place. So I was definitely in there. And then just your typical, you have to do maths, you have to do all the basic kind of subjects. But yeah, English was always my favourite. I could write an essay of 4,000 words and have to cut it down. That's always my problem. I love to talk and I love to tell a story, and that has not changed. And I think it's a good benefit in HR anyway, to tell a story, take people on a journey.
Yeah, well, I think that storytelling is really about connection. It's about those shared experiences, and and because you were saying before, and I know this of you, you love people.
I love people.
I really get why you were here. So just again, just with the experience at Hayes, you said, look, you didn't want to work in an agency, but you knew that you'd landed in a place that was right for you. How did you know that? What was it about HR at that point in your career that said to you, this is me?
Yeah. I like to call it a superpower, Ingrid. And, that's my self-disclosed superpower. But one thing that I've always been really good at, and I think it comes from my father, who's in the psych mental health realm, but is I can really read people and I can gauge people really quickly. And that has sort of been something when you're starting in recruitment, you're interviewing, you're selecting, and so you really need to be able to get a quick read on someone, whether it's a cultural fit, skill fit and person fit. And I could see that I had that ability, but also the ability to be quite warm and to get people to open up quite quickly, to relax and be at their best. And so I definitely saw that coming through recruitment. And I've seen that time and time through my relationships with my stakeholders. I really love to be that trusted advisor, and that's something that I was taught early on in HR, is to succeed in HR you have to be a trusted advisor. And I think my superpower, like I like to call it, really plays to that, because even my CEO now, he would say the same thing. He really trusts and relies on my judge of character of people, and my sense, and I can really read a room and know what's going on without it being spoken. And it's just kind of, I think, gotten stronger as the years of experience have continued.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt that is a superpower, because not everyone can do that. And I don't even know, actually, Michelle, whether people can always learn that. I think that they can get better at reading the room and starting to pick up some of that. But, if you have that innate sense like you seem to be able to just know what's required next, it really can inform that decision making, and then you back that up with all of the experience that you've got with working with people over the years.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, so one of the things with the sales revolution, that whole model that I've been working on for a little while, is underpinned by my philosophy of mutual mattering, and I feel that organisations are approaching a time where it's not going to be enough for them just to lean on a sales team, that in fact the whole organisation needs to embrace a different way of being. So everyone in the organisation really gets that they have internal and external customers that they need to be of service to borrow your phrase, to be trusted advisors to, predominantly. What's your view on the importance of a company culture of being of service, particularly internally to one another, but then also, how that impacts the way that same organisation, and obviously Intellihub in this case, treats its customers externally?
It's a really interesting question. I think I've worked in a lot of industries, and the industries have always had a customer because we've had a product. So we've been selling a product. And Intellihub is very much a B2B organisation. And so you're not dealing with a consumer, which has been heavily my previous experience. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I think my most valuable experience in truly understanding the customer impact and that mutual mattering of an organisation sort of touching the customer, is Arts Centre Melbourne, and it just, I think, will continue to be. Yeah. And that was really, I joined at a time where they were going from very much just, putting on shows for the community, and that was the focus, to a place where they went, actually, no, this is not just about a show, this is about a full customer experience, and everybody touched on that experience, and it was the IT crew who created the website for a customer to go on to buy their ticket. It was the ticketing group that was paramount in that service, right through to the car parking team for when that customer drove their car park in to see the show, to the ushers, to the food and beverage attendants, to the corporate services group that were either finding the talent, uplifting the talent, and making sure there was that customer service mentality. Every single person really felt a part of what we were doing for the community who were our customer. And I've probably never seen one so focused and pronounced because of what it is. It's really is a not-for-profit type organisation mentality. At Intellihub, we are one of those organisations like many others where you need a customer to have a business. You need a customer to buy a product. And so, the whole organisation needs to understand that the customer is so important, because without them, there is no organisation. And I think some of the work that we're doing with you, Ingrid, is about looking at our current team and saying, how can we support you more? How can we uplift you more in that relationship and building that rapport with our customer so that, they want to be with Intellihub because they enjoy the relationship, they're finding it impactful, there is something of value for them in that, not just the end product that they're buying. And at an organisational standpoint, I think some people are really driven by that impact that they might be having on the customer, and then you've got other positions that probably aren't necessarily thinking about the customer, but it's about what motivates them to really want to drive in their role and be motivated by it and do the best that they can. Because if they do the best that they can, then the outcome for the customer is ultimately going to be the best we can do. And I think one of the proud moments that I had at Intellihub was redoing our purpose and our values. So we did a full rebrand. And, our purpose statement is so powerful because it's simplify your energy transition. And it's it's personalising it for not only our retailers, but it's also for the end user who has a smart meter on their house or any of our, future behind the meter products. And from a value standpoint, I didn't create the original, so I wasn't here when they had them, but the feedback that came through from our people doing focus groups across the organisation was customer wasn't a part of it. So we had these amazing values, but where was the customer presented? And so, something that we were really, really focused on with the new values was taking all of that feedback and making sure that the customer was present in them. And they're so simple and we get so much positive feedback on them, but I'll do a plug for them because I love them. But do the right thing, look after each other, be bold, be brave, and together we own it. And you can feel the customer throughout of it. And it's about let's do the right thing by the customer, let's look after the customer together. Let's work together and let's be bold and brave. Let's have these conversations. And so you can really feel the customer through it. But I do think an organisation needs to understand who their customer is. And they need to understand the purpose of an organisation, because at the end of the day, that's the cornerstone and that's what everyone comes to work for. That's what you're driven by and that's what you're achieving as a collective. And so if you don't have those two things, then there's tension points because people feel that what they're here for is something different to what other people are driving towards, and you need that united front.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that there was somebody who kind of went, excuse me, we've forgotten about the customer here. And going back and making sure that was a critical focus for the values. I just want to come back first to the Art Centre, and then I want to come back into how those values are lived and how we make sure that everyone in the organisation understands that they've got a customer, because it sounds pretty straightforward, but actually trying to get somebody who really only ever thinks about the customer as someone that pays us money for the goods and services that we provide and doesn't understand that the customer is actually anyone that we deliver value to, whether it be internal or external, because we're either, directly serving a customer or supporting someone who is. So I'll come back to that one. But Art Centre, now you talked about all of those different touch points along the way, right through to the car park attendants and the ushers and the people at food and beverage and everything. Was it something that was a part of like a training program or an induction program, or was how did that kind of play out? How did everyone just inherently adopt this completely customer focused, joyous way of engaging?
I think it was at a point in time where even through the industry, people were understanding and deepening their understanding of what a customer was. And
Okay.
so I don't think Arts in Melbourne was the only organisation talking about customer experience, but I definitely think it was very felt there. And it was an organisational change. It was bringing in commercial minded people. And that wasn't something that the Arts Centre had really focused on before. They outsourced a lot of these areas. And so it was actually about bringing this back in-house, getting really strong commercial people that could drive the revenue, which in turn allowed us to do more shows to put on for the community. And so there was definitely a rub between artistic people and commercial people because, you know, your philosophy in each of those streams are very personal. It's a value-based process. And so it was really about the leadership team bringing everyone together and understanding that direction.
Right.
And the more you can do for the community, you know, who can argue with that? You got more money, you can do more things, you can put more exciting shows on, you can do more philanthropic activities.
Right.
And that's something that anyone can really get around once you start seeing that come to life.
Okay, so it was the connection to the community. It's
Always.
okay, because I think that that's fundamental, and a lot of businesses forget that they're actually part of a community, and they forget to really embrace the community. You know, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So let's come back to Intellihub. So you've got those values now. You know, how does Intellihub ensure that everyone across the business understands that they each have customers, whether they be internal or external?
Look, I think our CEO is really good in our town halls or all hands or whatever your organisation might happen to call it, but
Yeah.
really strong at talking about the customer, our product,
Yeah.
our purpose, and making sure that people do feel connected. We're fortunate in that this organisation is one of the most successful unknown organisations, and so we really have had to work on our brand externally, but also for our people, they're a part of this rapid growth journey, and so the customer, our products, you know, what we're doing, the renewable transition, how we're a part of that, and what we're trying to bring for the end user, which really is about electrifying your home in its, you know, simplest form. We talk about all the time.
Right.
And people that join the organisation, they're typically passionate about being a part of that renewable transition because it feels good. You know, it's about our future, it's about their kids' future, and it's about being a part of something that is making a difference. And so you do feel that and you see that, and there is a lot of passion within this organisation, but it is about reinforcing that message.
Yes. Well, see that's the tie between the two organisations there. From listening to what you're saying, is the connection to something greater. You know, a purpose greater than the individual. That people want to belong to. They want to be a part of it. They feel like their contribution actually makes a difference.
Yeah, and that feels nice, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I mean,
Yeah.
and you saw after COVID-19, the great resignation, all these people were leaving their roles because they wanted a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And so a position or a job that they may have had before COVID and the reality of how hard that pandemic was,
Yes.
people went, well, no, if I'm going to go to work every day, I do want to feel like I'm doing something more than just, you know, working in HR. And I think that has been a real shift for organisations to actually get their head around it.
Yeah.
Because you need to really think about someone's motivations, drivers and purpose, and make sure that it does align with your organisation. And we're in that lucky spot that we are a part of a changing landscape for this renewable transition. And so that is a real purpose for a lot of people to get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So without everyone having to go away and research Intellihub, would you mind just giving us a little bit of a few sentences about, you know, what Intellihub services actually are and who some of your customers actually are?
So I may not do this as well as some of the other executive on the team, but essentially when I joined, I had no idea who Intellihub was, but I had a smart meter on my house. And I'd had it there for, quite a while and didn't even understand the real importance of what that smart meter is. And if you think about back in the day, you used to have people come into your house to read your meter. And so there's a carbon footprint with that. And so this was quite an incredible technology that someone came up with and said, hey, you have a smart meter on your house, let's put some more technology in this so it can be capable of doing so much more and, being able to read your electricity usage, which we then send on to the retailers who then charge the customer. So we do that all digitally.
Yep.
But now a smart meter can be capable of so much more. And so you can use that now for solar, for EV charging, so we're all getting into our EV cars now, water pump technology, and so it's about getting the benefit of your electricity usage.
Yeah.
Which, is one of those things where some people are really into it. You've got some people that know everything about their electricity usage, when's the best time to put it on and off, and are really sort of that forward thinking and wanting to electrify their home. And then you have other people that think it's a great idea, but it feels all too hard.
Yeah.
And then you have a pool that don't really understand the benefit of it. And so Intellihub really aims to be able to make it simple. And simple for our retailers, but also simple for our house owners to be able to actually get the benefit of electrifying their house. So it is interesting, it's exciting, and it's very innovative. And so we're still working through all the additional opportunities now available for us through the use of the EV charging, your solar, and your batteries and your pool pumps, and who knows, it could even go to your stove cooktops. I think the opportunities are endless, and it's all around the technology that we bring.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for that. I just thought, we're talking about, such an exciting space there, and yet I hadn't asked you to talk about
I'm not sure that I did it a justice, Ingrid. I think if you had our CEO here, or even one of our executives who runs Australia and New Zealand, they would give you a much more thorough, in-depth explanation, which would have you on the edge of your seat, because they're living and breathing, talking about the product.
Sure.
But it is something exciting, and it is hugely innovative, and it's all focused about the end user.
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it? And then enabling the retailers that you service and support to have a differential to take to their customers as well, so that they can create that experience. No, that's fantastic. So, Michelle, we've got a lot of different people that listen to this podcast. We've got obviously salespeople, but we've got business owners, we've got executives, we've got leaders who viscerally understand that having a rich culture of service will enable them to become magnetic for the right people. And we've talked about being connected to a purpose greater than, the individual, with the Arts Centre example as well as Intellihub. And when that happens, the right employees tend to gravitate, because the purpose of the organisation becomes really, really clear, and people are attracted to that. And they want to belong to something like that. But so too do customers. So if you were talking to, other people who might be listening here, what are some of the steps that you'd recommend that they take in order to move towards having that culture of service?
Yeah, I think it's all about people. Like, in its truest form, it's about people. And I do joke with my CEO that, hiring me was the best decision he made, which, is very tongue-in-cheek. But it's my position. He was incoming and he saw the potential that he needed in people for this huge, rapid growth that was ahead of us. And he went out and sourced my position first out of, looking at the executive team. And I think that speaks volumes for him. And I think you need a really strong executive on people you need to be talking about all the time. Decisions impact people, and people impact performance, and performance impacts the customer. And I think you just can't underestimate people, and having people feel valued, motivated, and feeling safe and protected. And so for us, it's really been about this culture. And you need an executive team that truly understands and wants to foster the culture, because it's
Mm.
not a P&C function. Culture used to be a P&C function,
Right.
but it's not anymore. It's really got to be driven by the executive team,
Yeah.
and you need to protect your culture. And it can't be that one P&C executive doing that. It has to be led from the CEO, from the executive, and down to the leadership and to your people. Everyone really needs to be invested into what is the culture that we want, because at the end of the day, your people are your brand.
Mm.
And it's the most organic way to either advocate for the brand or to destroy a brand. And so I think you really need to work on your people strategy, making sure that people are engaged. And if you look at the diversity, policies and strategies that are really becoming so important, they're important because people actually want to come to work and be their self. They don't want to hide who they are. They want to be proud of where they work. They want to be able to create really strong relationships with their peers and with their leaders. And so, for us, we use the coaching methodology, which I know, Ingrid, you're really passionate about as well.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of our culture, because it's about getting to know people. It's about giving them the power to choose their development as well. And it's not just about what the leader wants, it's actually about what the employee needs, and giving them the tools to use the self-reflection to work through. And I'm a big believer of the coaching methodology, and I just think you need that authentic trust and empathy. And so for our leaders, that empathetic leadership is something that we've really focused on over the last couple of years. And we know people leave a job because of their people leader, and a lot of people choose a job because of their people leader. And I'm no different to that. When I go for interviews, I'm very much interviewing that people leader as to see whether I think it's the right fit for me and whether we have the same value structure as much as that person is doing that for me. So, I think you really need to have your people agenda first and foremost, because without it, you really can't succeed. You're either going to have high turnover, you're going to have a toxic workforce, you're not going to have a really good outcome for your customer. You've just got to get that recipe right. And for us, it's been a journey of really working on our culture. And we're really proud of where we are, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. We want to keep improving.
Yeah, I think that's certainly been my experience in the time that we've been speaking to, and since you've been at Intellihub, it seems like it just continually stretches itself, beyond, where's the next horizon, where's the next horizon.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. And that really kind of takes us almost full circle back to, where we started, which was around your love of people.
Yes.
And, the empowerment that one person can have over another. And you talked about the importance of the people leader as being the reason why somebody, stays or is attracted to an organisation, or has the opposite experience and decides to leave because there isn't a fit. And you talked about the importance of the leadership structure and the executive structure of really leading the way, but underpinned by a very strong people policy and structure and culture. And you can see how that culture can be eroded just with one person, one of those recruitment choices that aren't aligned from a values perspective there too, and how that kind of creeps down.
Yeah, and you've got to be really, I like to say you've got to be fierce of your culture, but you've got to lean in, as an executive team and as people leaders, you really need to, not be scared to have courageous conversations, which I think the industrial landscape has made it really scary for a lot of leaders. But you do. High performing people attract high performing people.
Yeah.
You don't come to work and want to carry someone else's workload. It's just not a thing.
Right.
And so you've really got to protect your organisation. And if you do spot people that aren't aligning, whether it's values or behaviours or their performance, they're just not leaning in and supporting the team, you have to act, and you have to act quickly.
Right.
Because you've got to protect this ecosystem that you've created and that people are choosing to want to be a part of.
Incredible, Michelle. Look, I could talk to you all day long,
We could.
but we won't right now. But would you come back another time?
if you'd love to have me, I'm happy to
Yeah,
come back. I love to talk about people, so if it's
yeah,
about people, I'm all there. Uh,
fantastic. Because I think today, like I was just thinking of, Bianca, who will be grabbing. There's so many sound bites from what you've said today, and so much value that I'm sure that the listeners are going to take away and really think about, and start to consider how they can apply that to their own organisation. So, I really want to say thank you so much
my
for
pleasure.
speaking with me, and I'll look forward to our next conversation.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.